This is Jerry Ann Waring. Today on Thursday, 12 o'clock Central Standard Time in Central Texas. Adoption Awareness Live. So here we are. Pretty overcast today. Central Texas has seen some rain the last couple of days and more to come. Just stay safe out there if you're anywhere in Central Texas. I wanted to cover an issue that I started talking about last Thursday or Friday when I was talking about birth moms, and talk a little bit about what open adoption is, open and closed adoptions, and what are the pros and cons on either of those topics. I just wanted to say real quick before we go any further. First of all, I hope everyone had a happy Mother's Day. Mine was wonderful. Got to see one of my sons and talk to my other two. So that was good. And also, just to remind you that because we are live, you're going to find some little mistakes here and there. But also, you do have the opportunity to listen in. You have opportunity to write your thoughts or your comments below, and I will see them and I'll be happy to comment on them. Also, you can email me at adoptionawareness@hotmail.com. And so if you have some discussion or questions or things that you're concerned about, please feel free to drop me a line either way. I wish I had a call line right now, but unfortunately I don't. But I'm pretty good about responding back pretty quickly. But last time when I talked, I did mention open and closed adoptions, and there may be some questions that what is that and what does it mean, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of an open adoption versus a closed adoption for all parts of the triad, not just for the adopted parents or the birth parents, but also the adoptee. There are advantages and disadvantages, okay? So I want to cover those a little bit. I try to keep my time about 30 minutes. Sometimes we might go over, sometimes we might be less, but nonetheless, it's good information. I don't want to take a lot of your time today to cover too much, so that's why I pick topics every week. So this one, I got some information off of americaadopts.com. One of the things about adoption awareness is I don't come up with new stuff. I mean, why reinvent the wheel? I go out there and get information off the internet. There's some brilliantly wonderful organized adoption agencies and organizations that are advocates for adoption that have information already out there. So what I try to do is provide you some information on my adoption awareness site that is a clearinghouse, if you will, of information that's out there. Try to keep it up every day, and I have a lot of people writing me wanting certain information. So I try to provide that for you on a daily basis, okay? So this one's americaadopts.com. And so they have provided some questions on here on the pros and cons of an open adoption. And then I will talk a little bit more about closed adoptions and as we go through this, okay? So the first part of it is for birth parents. What are the advantages of having an open adoption? The option to find adoptive parents for your baby. You get to talk to them and you get to meet them. Now, when you go to agencies as a birth mother, you have the opportunity to look at profiles that have been put together. The families do it. Pictures of their home, pictures of their pets, other children they might have, fun vacations that they like to take, you name it. You will find those things as a birth mom in those profiles, okay? So that gives you an opportunity to look through things, look through various profiles to determine which family you like, okay? Some agencies will allow you the opportunity to talk to them ahead of time, and also once you've made a decision to meet them, to have a face-to-face, okay? You also, as a birth mother, have the advantage of coming up with an adoption plan for your child. And what does that exactly mean? Well, it can mean anything. It can mean, well, I'd like to be able to see my child on his birthday and his or her birthday. I'd like to be able to write letters. I'd like to get pictures on her birthday, or maybe twice a year, maybe more. So you can say what your expectations are and make a plan for your child. You want your child to have parents who make a certain amount of money every year, have an income, a particular income. You can say, I want my mother, the adoptive mother, to be a stay-at-home mom. I don't want her to work. And so you can make a plan and basically write out what it is your desire, your specifics are that you're looking for with regarding an adoptive family. Okay? You can also say you want to maintain that relationship with your child as he or she gets older. Some women say, well, for the first couple of years. Some say until they turn into elementary school age. Others want to continue contact with their child until they turn 18 and hopefully at some point be able to even have a meeting with their child once they're old enough to say what they want. And if they desire to meet the birth mom, then that can also be something that can be set up with your agency. Okay? You also have the advantage as a birth mother to have less uncertainty about the future of that child and how your child is loved and cared for. It really helps when you've when you've made a plan for your child and you have all your questions answered, then you have a little bit more peace, a lot more peace, really, about where your child is going to be, how he's going to be raised. And also, if the child ever has questions and is old enough that the adoptive family is allowing the child to ask questions, they could ask you certain questions about why they were placed for adoption. That can happen anytime as they become older. There's no age limit or, minimum or maximum. Sometimes kids are perfectly content with adoption and they don't want to ever ask, to find out more from their birth mom. So let's go on to the adoptive parents. What are the advantages of an open adoption for adoptive parents? They have a say in the matching process. And I think this is a very important component because you can come in as an adoptive parent and say, I want a closed adoption. That's it. So what is a closed adoption? A closed adoption is pretty much where you have information on the background of the birth mother, maybe the medical history. That's pretty much it. And for the birth mom, they don't have a lot of information given to them either. It's pretty basic. There's no pictures. There's no selection process. There's nothing. It's very, very closed, very private. So the same for the adoptive family. Their situation, and I should say that in this time, 2016, open adoptions are more prevalent. However, there are still families who would prefer to have a closed adoption, and that is very, very okay. I mean, it's your choice, and it's something that you're able to do if that's the choice you make. So. Also, you have the ability to talk and meet with your child's birth parents, and a lot of families like to do this. And again, it's a match. So the birth family has to want the same thing that the adoptive family wants. I say we, but in the past when I worked with adoption agencies, we never would match off of each other. They had to be a perfect match on both sides. Have the same feelings, the same wants, same desires, etc. So they're able to have an opportunity to meet with the birth parent and talk to them. And it's a great time to put those people together because I've never seen a bad meeting happen. They've always been good. There's also a feeling of validation from being chosen by your child's birth parents. It's a hard thing. I mean, we talked about this last week. It's very difficult to go through this process as a birth mom. And the birth fathers sometimes are involved. But it is a difficult thing. So if you know that you're being chosen as a birth mom by your adoptive family, it's validating the decision that they made to move forward with adoption. Okay? There's also a heightened sense of security from knowing about your child's birth parents and why they chose adoption. That kind of goes without any further explanation. Having access to medical information about your child in the case of serious illness. That's extremely important at any stage of the adoption continuum, whether it's a closed adoption or an open adoption. But in the situation of an open adoption, things may happen in the course of a birth mother's life that you ordinarily wouldn't know anything about when you went through a closed adoption. There would be no updates after adoption is finalized. You wouldn't know anything. So at least with an open adoption, you have that continual access of medical information if anything should happen with the birth family or in regards to your child. Okay? Also, you have the ability to answer questions your child may have about his adoption. You can include the birth parents in that discussion, which of course you wouldn't be able to do with a closed adoption. The support and encouragement from your child's birth parents in your child rearing decisions. This is what the adoptive parents' advantages are. Because let me tell you, I think this is a myth that birth parents have no say-so in what type of discipline their child's going to receive. They do have some opinions. They really will voice that most of the time, and they might put that in their paperwork that they do, that the type of discipline that they would like their child to receive. So that's an important piece as well. Okay, so those are the advantages for adoptive parents. So now let's talk a little bit about the adoptees and the advantages that they have. Okay, they have a deeper understanding of who they are and where they came from. I think this is so true because there's, like, again, back up to the top where it says there's less uncertainty about the future. I believe strongly that an adoptee, if he or she has as much information as she or he can get regarding her past, regarding her birth parents, her ancestry, even just so much about his or her past, it really takes the guesswork out of, who am I as an adoptee? Where did I come from? So I think it's important, even if you have a closed adoption, that you could contribute as a birth mother as much information about your history, where you came from, what's your ethnicity, just as much as you can about the family, the great-grandparents, the grandparents, etc. But with an open adoption, it can be an ongoing discussion because you have contact with the birth mother as an adopted parent. And that information, of course, will be passed down to the adoptee. Okay? Also, there's an explanation as to why he or she was placed for adoption by his birth parents. I think there's a better understanding when we are keeping communications open with an open adoption for the adoptee to get his or her questions answered. Okay? Also, there's the ability to have a relationship with his birth family over the years. And so if you've got a birth mother and or birth father attending birth dates, or, there's visitations maybe once a month or every 6 months, however you all agree upon it. But as long as there's that face-to-face contact that the child, the adoptee, is having with his birth parents, there is going to be that relationship. But there will also be that understanding as to who he is, who she is. And again, I guess you can say there would be some boundary issues in relation to that child getting to know his or her birth parents better. Okay? I don't know if that makes sense, but I can elaborate if you have any questions. The no need to search for or fantasize about his birth parents. That's another really important point. Hi, viewers. Thanks for coming on. A lot of times when the child is ready to really look, quote unquote, for his birth parents, they don't have to look very far because they've been having that ongoing contact with their birth family. And so searching is really not going to be a big ordeal. It's not going to cost a lot of money, if none at all. So there's going to be a lot easier time for the adoptee in trying to have that opportunity to search for her or his family. Okay. Also, there's no fantasizing about what is my birth family like? What do they look like? Who are they? What do they do for a living? I mean, why did they place me for adoption? All those questions will be gone because you've been having that ongoing contact throughout the years with the birth family. So the adoptee, it just takes away the guesswork of having to try to figure out who my birth parents are. Okay? Most open adoptions are successful, but that doesn't mean that they're problem-free. And as with any relationship, they still require a lot of work and have their share of disadvantages as well. For birth parents, the disadvantages are the possibility that the family they choose to raise their child will change their minds before the placement. And that has happened and can happen. I've been doing adoptions for 23 years as a social worker, and I can count on one hand the hundreds and hundreds of families that I place children with. And actually, it's only not even on one hand. I mean, maybe two fingers. The number of placements that fell through. It does happen, and there's no guarantee that it won't happen to you. But you need to be aware of the flip side of the disadvantages of having an open adoption, okay? Birth families can change their mind. And so that's where good counseling comes in. That's where good emotional support comes in. So, and prayer, very important. So there's also the possibility that the family they choose may be working with another prospective birth family at the same time. So birth parents, you need to be aware that the family that you're going to be selecting could possibly be working with another birth family as well, and have that discussion with them. Okay? You definitely don't want to fall in love with this family and put all your eggs in one basket and then be disappointed after the baby's born that family's already gone with another family, or with another birth family. Okay? I'm so sorry. It happens to me every time I get on. Okay, so then there's the possibility that adopted parents may want more or less contact than outlined in their agreement. Excuse me. So this would be a conversation that you have to have with them. They may agree during the process of your adoption before the baby's born that they're going to do X, Y, Z. But then after the baby's born, they may take a lesser stance on as far as contact. You need to be prepared for that. And have that conversation with them, have that conversation with your social worker, and just be aware of it and come to terms with it. Is it going to be a deal breaker if they do decrease contact? That could happen, but you just need to be aware of it, okay? And then think about how you want to handle that situation. Also, when it comes to adoptive parents, the cons of open adoption is the possibility that they may not be chosen by a prospective birth family, okay? Honestly, that process, I guess it depends on the agency that you go with. And like I said in the beginning, it's a match between birth parent and adoptive families. So they're going to meet the needs of both groups before they put them together. They're going to look at the needs and then put them together. So, yes, that could be a possibility that you may not be chosen by the prospective birth parent, but once you've been matched, you've already been chosen. So, just to, again, have that discussion with your agency, with your social worker. You might want to copy this out and take it with you when you have your appointment. This stands true for birth parents as well as adoptive parents, okay? There's also the possibility that the prospective birth parent may change their mind prior to signing the relinquishment papers. That can happen. I know it's devastating for adoptive families when that happens, but you just need to be prepared for that. And how you prepare yourself emotionally, logically, prayerfully, be prepared that can happen, okay? And like I said earlier, it doesn't happen a lot. In my experience, in the years that I've done this kind of work, it doesn't happen very often, but it can. Can also be a roller coaster. I had a birth mom one time that changed her mind, took the baby home for the weekend, then went back to her original plan by Sunday night. And it was a joyous experience for the couple that she had chosen because she still wanted that couple. However, it was draining. It was emotionally draining for that couple as well. So you just have to be prepared for that, okay? There's also the possibility that the birth parents could withhold important key personal or medical information about them. That can happen. I've had that common question, well, what if they have HIV or AIDS? I don't know what to tell you there. It's a chance you take when you get into this. You can ask that question to the social worker, and the social worker can ask that question to the birth parents, and hopefully you'll get an honest answer. I've never heard of that happening, really, in my professional experience. So, but it doesn't mean that it can't, so. Also, there's the possibility that the birth parents could want more or less contact than agreed upon, so it could flip for the adoptive family, and suddenly they could say they could have like a maybe semi-open adoption in their mind in the beginning, but as the process evolves, they say, well, I want more. I want visits. I want birthdays. I want, whatever. Is that going to be a deal breaker for you? Are you going to decide not to go with that birth family? Again, that's something you have to think about, okay? And now there's the cons of open adoption for the child, for the adoptee. Depending on the circumstances and individuals involved, he or she still may have unanswered questions about their adoption. And that also affects the adoptive family as well. Is this child going to act out? Is the child going to be depressed? Does the child need counseling? Are there going to be certain issues that are just so hard for this child that they can't handle? Maybe it affects their grades in school, their relationships, what have you. So these are all things that are important for you to know and to think about and to ask questions to your agency, okay? And to let them advocate for you and to help you. There's a lot of post-adoption services available that will help you after the adoption should your child need additional, some professional counseling as he or she gets older, okay? Another con of open adoption is he may not ask questions for fear of hurting his adoptive or birth parents. And again, that might manifest itself in their behavior. They may not be asking questions, but they're acting out. So you need to just keep an open mind and open vision as to why that child may be acting the way they're acting, okay? He may still have fears about abandonment. He or she may have fears about abandonment. That's a very, very real possibility. But if they were adopted as babies, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it can. But most of the time, in most cases, babies are pretty secure in their love for their adopted parents, and the abandonment is there. But every child is different. Every family is different. So you just need to keep that in mind for post-adoption services if you need it, okay? He or she may feel forced to choose sides in a disagreement between two sets of parents. So if you have an open adoption, you've got to be very careful that there are no disagreements that your child will see or know about, because then there is going to be that loyalty issue where even though you've adopted them as the adopted parents, these are my birth parents, and do I have to choose sides? And so there may be some acting out issues there too. I know these are very, very tough, very, very tough things to have to hear and process, but you do have so much available to you with your agencies, should you go through an agency. I think maybe next time we'll talk about the differences in adoptions. That might be a good topic. But if you go through an agency, a child placing agency, explore all of these things that I just talked about with you, and also look up the agencies. This particular americaadopts.com/resources, you can look up pros and cons of open adoption. Okay? And take this with you. Print it out, take it with you, and have these questions explored with your social worker. Okay? Last one is, the child may worry that spending time with or showing his support for one set of parents will upset the other one. I have to tell you, in my own experience about this, I experienced this with a family one time who had a child in foster care. And very similar situation, because love is love. And this particular child was falling in love with her adopted parent. But she also had regular visits with her, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. She was falling in love with her foster mom, but was still every weekend having visits with her biological mom. Her biological mother was having some issues at that time with housing, etc. So mom did a very brave thing, and to keep her daughter having some stability with the same school and same home life, etc., she placed her in foster care for a while. And it was through a nonprofit agency, not affiliated with CPS. So when her mother would have visits with her daughter, we started noticing that the little girl, was acting out after every visit with her mom. She loved having visits with her mother, but she was acting out really bad. So I had a brilliant supervisor who thought about the loyalty issue. And we had a discussion with mom the next time we saw her, and asked her if she would please tell her daughter that it's okay for her to love more than one person. It's okay. You can love a lot of people. And feelings aren't going to be hurt. It's okay if your foster mom knows biological mother, and it's okay for biological mom for her to know that you love your foster mom. And would you believe, once that discussion happened, it was incredible, the response of this little girl. Her behavior changed. There was peace again in the home. Foster mom was happy. Birth mom was happy. It was incredible. So it's interesting, young children. This little girl actually was about 5 or 6 years old. And her behavior was manifested by, she was angry. She was scribbling on walls with crayons. She was breaking things. She was just disrespectful in the home to her foster mom, and to the home and to her foster mom's belongings. She was disruptive at school. All of this because she was struggling internally with the loyalty issue and wanting to love more than one person, but not feeling that she was going to hurt or upset the other person. So that is a very important thing to be listening to and watching. And have a discussion also with your agency or your social worker at some point, even when those post-adoption services are available to you. I would ask your agency, do you provide post-adoption services? Make sure they do, so that you're able, to utilize those services when necessary. Okay? So that's is going to end my discussion now on open adoptions and the pros and cons. I do appreciate the viewers who came on. Would have been nice to have heard from you, but that's okay. I'm glad that you came on and listened. So every Thursday, 12 noon Central Standard Time, we will be meeting. Like I said, I think next week I'm going to talk about the different agencies, different forms of adoption, that what they are, what the differences are, and how you can get started. Okay, so thank you so much again for tuning in. I really, really do appreciate it. And I tell you again, Central Texas, turn around, don't drown. If you have a lot of rain in your area, don't risk going through that water. Okay. And stay safe wherever you are, and hopefully we'll see you next week, Lord willing. God bless. Take care. Bye bye.